This is the BBC.
Dear brothers and sisters, all are welcome here at the Confessions podcast, whether saint or sinner.
After you. Hey, we're back. We just did a big farewell.
Yes.
But,
we're back again.
Like terrifying ghosts. Can't get rid of us.
And I'm here.
That's a first.
I know.
What are you doing here?
I don't know. I just stayed in the studio.
Confessions podcast from the BBC here, from your friends at Radio 2. So, Matt and Bobby and Nigel making a first and last
Yes.
appearance.
Very definite, quite right.
This week's collection of tales features Red's confession, chive talking, Alex's stories, sports bags and glad rags, Prankish Paula's tale, Scareway to Devon, and a classic confession involving a lot of balls. First, we start with Nicola's confession. She's like the wind saw. I don't remember that.
That doesn't make... She's like the... Go on.
She's like the Windsor. But you see,
the Windsor.
Written
Right,
down.
yes. No,
If everyone could just write this one down, she's like the wind -saw.
Saw, yeah.
Oh, never mind.
Brilliant.
Oh, yes, I see that.
Back off.
Simon Mayo's Confessions podcast. Please be seated.
Father Simon and the aggregation of absolution.
Wow. That's very good.
Is that new?
It is new,
I think
yeah.
so. Let me take you back to the mid-'80s, where my friend Tina and I were two young ladies from Essex who decided that office work was not for us, and instead the glamour of working in a hotel beckoned. That being so, instead of taking A-levels, we had both enrolled on a diploma in catering to train us for our future career. The event I'm asking forgiveness for took place in 1986, when our 2-year course was coming to an end. And it was time to take the next step into the big, wide world of work. Tina and I had been looking at different places to apply for jobs so that we could start on our career path. We came across an on-the-job management training scheme where we'd be given the chance to work in lots of different departments within a hotel to gain experience and then hopefully be fast-tracked into management. How exciting that would be. Tina and I both applied and we were excited to be offered interviews on the same day in the royal city of Windsor. That's where we're going. Well, Simon, we were prepared. We'd purchased our first suits for the interview and, being the 80s, added volume to our hair as best we could. I favoured a short style, blonde highlights and spiky on top, so filled it with mousse and hung my head upside down to blow dry it, achieving the right amount of spiky lift. Okay?
Back then, I think you used Studio Line.
Is that right?
Can't get it now.
What?
Others were
Studio
that's it.
Line, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
Tina had a beautiful mane of red hair, perfect for creating the volume beloved of the 80s, with the added help of a lot of backcombing. See, a lot of people are now comparing their hair from the 80s. Off we went on the day of the interview in my navy blue mini metro, the one that had a little bump in the front wing where I'd hit a parked car just a few weeks after passing my test. It wasn't a classy car, but it did the job. As with most journeys of the time, we had instructions written on a piece of paper, a list of motorways, exit numbers, drawings of roundabouts, turnings, that kind of thing. As I was driving, I expected Tina to navigate, but as Tina was a passenger, she expected me to know where I was going. As I'm sure happened with many journeys in those days, confusion ensued during a long journey of being told that I should turn off to the left, just as I got past the point where I could actually turn off to the left. "That's a turning," Tina would shout. "Why didn't you tell me before it's too late?" I would shout back at her. After a lot of turning back and stopping to check instructions, we finally made it into Windsor and tried our best to avoid the many tourists who believe that walking on the road is acceptable. We don't do that over here. I will admit, Simon, that after much confusion driving through Windsor's streets, I was getting a bit stressed and made a quick decision to take a left turning behind the car that was now in front of us. There were a few moments of quiet, and then... "What are you doing?" shouted Tina. "What are you doing?" shouted Tina. "What do you mean?" I retorted, trying to remain calm despite her apparent panic. "Where are you going?" "Just up here. I'm sure we must be close. We're right by the castle."
Oh, no.
Tina was unusually silent and open-mouthed. I looked over at Tina and through the window next to her I saw a panicked-looking policeman gesticulating wildly. I looked to the window on my right to see another police officer in a similar flustered state. "What are you doing?" repeated Tina. Simon, it was only then that I looked closer at the big black car in front. Unlike my battered blue Mini Metro, this car was clean and shiny and black and sleek and was in fact a Rolls-Royce. I looked in the rear-view mirror to see an equally big, black, clean, shiny new car. And on the front was a little flag. Somehow in my navigation confusion, I had managed to join a convoy of royal rollers.
Superb.
I just sneaked in there without them realising what was going on. Well, I was stunned. Tina was stunned. The policemen were frantic and also a little bit scary. One firmly directed me to go to the right, and thus followed a lot of embarrassment as I shuffled the car back and forth to get out of the convoy and head in the right direction, in view of all the tourists. Father Simon, you will be relieved to hear that no harm was done. Our royal family's safety was ensured, and they never saw two Essex girls in a dented Mini Metro trying to do a three-point turn in the entrance of Windsor Castle.
Wow.
Therefore, I do not ask forgiveness from their royal highnesses, as no harm was done. I do not even ask forgiveness from the police officers. I'm sure security is much better these days, and that they are armed in preparation for lost teenagers on their way to job interviews. No, Simon, the people I do ask forgiveness from are the horde of tourists from the overseas areas and territories that seemed to appear from nowhere and surrounded our little car before the policeman could move us on. You may remember at the beginning of the story I mentioned my friend's beautiful mane of red hair, and that this event took place in 1986. 86, of course, being the year that Prince Andrew married Sarah Ferguson.
Oh, yes.
She of the famously flame red hair.
Ah, yeah.
And there we were, surrounded by police, with tourists pressed against the passenger side window, pointing and grinning, shouting, "Fergie! Oi, Fergie!
Oh, because
Give us a smile!
they were all from Liverpool and London as well, were they?
Oi! Give us a grin, love!" Anyway, they were taking photographs with little flashbulbs popping and lighting the car interior. My poor friend was mortified and momentarily got an understanding of what it is like to be famous, albeit famous as someone else. Quite what they thought Fergie was doing in a battered Mini Metro, I'm not quite sure. I often wonder what reaction these tourists got when they excitedly show friends and family their prized photographs of British royalty, only to have their mistake pointed out, leaving them disappointed. Or maybe there is still a photo of two shocked-looking Essex girls in an album somewhere that is still brought out to impress people until this day. Father Simon, on behalf of the excited but no doubt later disappointed tourists, will you please forgive me? I like a little royal story. There's a royal wedding coming up. Mm-hmm. Maybe there'll be a few more royal wedding confessions. That would be a thing of note. Anyway, so an interesting story from Nicola. What do you say there, Bobby?
Well, it could be Fergie hiding in plain sight, couldn't it? It's one of those things you'd never expect her to be there, so it could possibly...
Oh, I see. So so you would think that it's Fergie pretending not to be royal, but actually...
could be.
She really is.
Could be. I have made so many mistakes like you and ended up in so many ridiculous places, Nicola, that you're a girl's after my own heart. And I think, no harm done. You joined the royal entourage, and when you're trying to find your way round and you're trying to watch everything else and trying to find your way, I only worry if you've got your jobs or not, because I hope you did.
We don't know. We haven't... Nicola doesn't add that information.
No, because that would have been lovely to know if you did. You're forgiven, because really, I can't see any harm at all. Take care. Good luck. Well done. Forgiven.
Bobby's been very magnanimous.
I think so.
Week.
I am also going to forgive. And here's the reason. I mean, I understood that these royal drivers, the guys who do the car, the people who drive the royal cars, they're all trained to, not let anyone in. They're supposed to be within, credit card width between the two cars, so that the special security and all that. So she's done very well to get in between some of them. And I'm sure the tour guides were loving it. And there, of course, is the slightly dented Mini Metro, dating back many years, and a big part of the British tradition of having... it looks like Fergie, doesn't it? Let's all get our cameras out. Yes, I'm definitely going to forgive, because what fabulous driving that was by Nicola.
The Confessions Podcast.
Father Simon and your team of forgiveness experts, after many years of therapy, there is still one shameful event that I am still suffering from, and so in desperation, I am turning to you to ask for forgiveness and a chance for closure. The incident I'm looking for forgiveness for occurred around 1985, when I was 14 years old. At my school, we were divided into houses, and I was in Reeves' house. Once a year, we hosted an end-of-term supper for honoured guests, which in reality meant some of the senior teachers, as a year 4, it was our responsibility to lay up the tables and distribute the food before the guests arrived. I'd have thought inviting teachers doesn't really... teachers are very wonderful people, but they're not exactly... Look at our honoured guests. You just got a French teacher from around the corner.
Jones.
Again. All the food was delivered on trolleys from the school kitchens. Well, I say food, it was mostly a collection of dried old sliced chicken and other desiccated vegetables, which had long since forgotten that they were ever grown in damp soil. The crown jewel of the meal was an enormous container of potato salad, and as it was clearly destined to be the only moist thing in the meal, it was very important that it went out on the tables. As one of the kitchen staff put the salad on the table for me to collect, she said these immortal words, "Be careful with the potato salad, there's only just enough to go around." Well, that moment she exited the room, I went to pick up the said container of delicious-looking moist potato salad. That's 2 moists in 3 paragraphs, which is a record.
We know what's coming.
But my subconscious must have heard her say, instead of... I thought, well, she told me later, it was, "Be careful with the potato salad." But my subconscious mind must have heard her say, "Drop the container on the floor," because that's exactly what happened. It landed upside down and not a single potato remained inside the large metal container. With all the responsibility of being put in charge of potato salad distribution, I was now panicking. So I did what seemed the most obvious thing to me. I grabbed the large metal serving spoon and started scraping the potato salad back into the container. This is where the second part of the kitchen lady's instructions were noted, because I scraped the carpet as hard as I could in order to get as much potato salad back in. It's to get it back safe home. I say carpet, but it was more of thin, wiry green floor covering that hadn't been cleaned for at least 3 months. And little did I know that the keenness with which I scraped the floor was going to come back to haunt me. I'd gotten almost all of the potato salad back in the container and using a 12-inch plastic ruler, scraped the remains of the potatoes and mayo, no offence,
Untaken.
Into the drawer of one of my schoolmates' desk. He wasn't there at the time and he'd been mean to me that term, so it seemed like a fitting karmic response. Yeah, take that, Reynolds. Fast forward to an hour later, and the local dignitaries turned up for the supper that they'd probably been dreading. They'd all been seated by my housemaster, a lovely man called Dr. Jones, and unfortunately he caught my eye and invited me to sit next to the housemaster's wife, because he thought I was chatty and friendly. It was meant to be a privilege to sit next to the main guest of honour, but I was nervous. It wasn't so much blood on my hands as mayonnaise on my hands. It was a dark secret. And due to the dryness of all the other food... You remember the potato salad was moist?
Yes.
It was indeed very popular. In fact, the housemaster's wife helped herself to a huge pile of it. And despite the candles and the low light that my housemaster had thought would make the supper more high class, and I thought might disguise the special ingredient, to my horror and despair, I could clearly see strands of green carpet sticking out of her mountain of potato salad. "What is this, do you think?" said the housemaster's wife, her voice warm and engaging.
There it is. Well done, yeah.
"What is this, do you think?" Well, I wasn't about to say old mucky plastic fibres which everyone's been standing on with their filthy outdoor shoes, was I? Or it's an 80-20 mix of wool and synthetic fibres, miss. Polypropylene, I expect. Stain-free. Easy to clean. So from somewhere, and I don't know where, I said, "Oh, it's chives, miss."
Of course.
"Chives, eh?" she said, her voice still warm and still engaging.
Yeah.
"How exotic." Well, this is the 80s.
Yeah.
We both laughed knowingly. How grown up was I, discussing vegetables with Mrs. Jones. What a night! Thankfully, she enjoyed her meal, and as I kept her entertained and distracted from the rancid carpet salad, she never suspected a thing. By the way, rancid carpet salad, a good name for a band.
Yes, seen them live.
You would, though, wouldn't you?
Definitely, yeah.
Steve Lamacq, look out. To this day, Father Simon, you are the first person I've told about what happened that dark night in 1985. I'd like your forgiveness, please, on behalf of the lady from the kitchen for not taking care of her beloved and very moist potato salad. For the housemaster's wife, you know her with the engaging voice, who accidentally ingested little strands of dirty green carpet with polypropylene and stain-free, easy-to-clean strands. And for my fellow pupil, who would have returned at the start of the next term and discovered an ever-growing pile of mouldy potato salad in the drawer of his desk, although, quite frankly, he did deserve it, as I might have mentioned, because he'd been unpleasant to me. Who'd have thought potato salad could be so versatile? Revenge for a grotty comrade, but also the language of engagement at a fine end-of-term supper. Sister Bobby speaks now.
All right, well done, because it seems like you were chosen and you've done well and, people like you. And I've got two things here. First of all, I am going to forgive you for the potato salad incident this time. And I forgive you for putting it back in and pretending it didn't happen. Well saved with the chives situation. I mean, that was, well spotted. And the reason why I can forgive you is obviously the teacher, I think, was old enough. She came from a time when eating dirt wasn't a problem. The immune system was...
Eat dirt, teacher.
Well, just, when you're a kid, it's muddy and it doesn't matter.
There's goodness in the soil.
I think your immune system has built up enough resistance to cope with a bit of, dirt from the carpet.
In the 80s,
You'll
you could
fine.
eat soil.
Yeah, well, not in the 80s. Just when you were young, I don't think it's a problem. So I think you got away with it. What I do think is you didn't have to scrape so far down. You could have just taken the top off and then got rid of the rest. But what I don't forgive you for is putting it in your friend's drawer or your not so good friend's drawer. That's why I'm going to not forgive you for that bit. So it's a kind of, sit on the fence. You're both forgiven
and
not forgiven.
Isn't it just?
Aren't we all?
Brother Matthew.
We are firmly in sitcom land here, aren't we? With the people are coming to stay and I've dropped it all on the floor and I'm scraping it up and putting it in anyway and pretending it's chives. I'm a massive fan of this. And also, there was nothing else moist, was there, that they could have with their desiccated chicken. So, what else are you going to do?
How else are you going to liven up a rancid carpet salad?
Although I would probably argue, obviously, there's gravy. There's always room, I find, for gravy. Very much an underappreciated condiment. So I am going to forgive because obviously there was no gravy. So you had to go down the potato salad route.
Simon Mayo's Confessions Podcast.
That was Red's Confession Chive Talking, which we don't recommend you try it in your own kitchen or food hall. If you missed the confession going out live, then you wouldn't have heard the reaction on the people's verdict. So just for you guys with the important jobs, here's one of our favourite responses. Father Simon, it's at times like these, I do wonder what Fanny Craddock would have done.
Yes.
Nigel Grimsby.
What would Fanny Craddock have done, I wonder?
Still to come on this week's podcast, the confession that struck a chord with Bobby.
Alex, I am so mad at you. But it's one of those things where actually, no, Alex, no.
I know,
A big, no forgiven, forever.
Okay, that's very good. Wow, you were very firm and decisive on that one. Time to hop on over to the parish notice board. We still have a rather large notice that looks rather serious, so I'll do a serious voice. One of my serious voices.
Oh, yes.
Attention, podcast listeners. The British Podcast Awards has opened entries for their Listener Choice Award. Can you believe the Confessions podcast is awardless at the moment?
Unbelievable.
I know, I can't. But with your help, we can fix this. So if you're listening to the podcast online right now, you can head to BritishPodcastAwards.com/vote. All one word for British Podcast Awards, all lowercase, .com/vote. Search for Simon Mayo's Confessions, select it, enter your name and email address, click submit, and that is how you get to heaven.
Is it?
Well, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And
glad that's confirmed.
Apparently that's true.
Absolutely quite right. That's gentle cajoling.
Never mind about good deeds and reading scriptures. No, that's all you have to do.
Turns out it's subscribing to a podcast.
And if you get all your friends, brothers, sisters, grandparents to do it, we might dig up a super special piece of Radio 2 merchandise out of one of the cupboards here and send it to you as a thank you, and definitely not a bribe. And obviously proof will be needed and sent to confessions@bbc.co.uk. As I say, we're obviously in no way trying to fix this public vote, merely making you aware of its presence. And big thanks to those of you who've done it already. Matt, who are you thanking?
Well, I have an email from Sebastian who says, Dear Simon and the forgiving cumulative, this is not a confession. This is my desperate grab for Radio 2 tat. I voted for you to win the Listeners Award in the Podcast Awards. See attached image. There it is. If this is enough, I'll send you my address later. You are the only podcast I ever listened to, and I have found a Van Kleist. It shows how we're all separate.
That's right. Very, very good. Nice special art reference. Bobby, do you have someone who's voted?
Yes, I have an email from Fiona, but she comes all the way from Australia, so her vote counts even more because it's come so far. It says, Dear Simon, I tried taking a selfie with me casting my vote, but I did it during a power outage. I promise I am actually smiling beside the phone. See? You can't see her face, can you? Because there's no light.
Yeah. I'm not
But
Do you
she is
believe
there.
her?
Yeah, I do.
A power outage.
A power outage.
Is that
That's a
English?
power cut in the UK.
Oh, okay.
But she's an Australian.
Now, this is very dangerous, but Nigel, what have you got from the notice board?
Well, I have an email from the Salopian Cuckoo.
Okay.
Hi, Simon and co.
Hi, Salopian Cuckoo.
That's you two. And me. Here is evidence as requested of me voting for the awards. Great podcast and 5 stars on iTunes.
Lovely.
P.S. I'm getting all of my cuckoo friends to vote I'm getting all my cuckoo friends to vote Twit-twer-2. That's an owl. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Works so well in the edit.
Do you want me to do that again?
No, you're an asset to the collective. We also received an email from Elizabeth in Surrey. Dear Simon and the Drive Time Collective. Oh, hang on, I think I'm going to add something. This is no confession, it's just a short story about the magic of Your Confessions podcast and the healing powers it must have. A few weeks ago, I was at the supermarket and noticed I had a very mild stomachache. Even though I was 39 weeks pregnant, I didn't think anything of it. I wandered around getting everything on my list and I cursed myself for forgetting my headphones, as it meant I couldn't listen to my Confessions podcast that I'd only got halfway through earlier that week. Plus, I had the Tales from the Crypt one downloaded and ready to go too. At this point, I texted my partner just to mention my stomach pains. I assured him it was probably nothing and carried on with my shop. I called up the midwife triage, but they didn't seem to be worried. I kept my boyfriend up to date, assuring him I didn't have any symptoms of labour. I got myself a blanket, settled onto the sofa and turned on my podcast. I had about 90 minutes worth of listeners' cheeky tales of guilt to get through, but it took me about an hour longer as I had to keep pausing to rush off to the little girls' room or to call the triage line, and they yet again promised me that they weren't contractions. The pain was getting much worse, but I just lay on the sofa being entertained and having my attention taken off what I assumed was Braxton Hicks by your Radio 2 team. Now, Braxton Hicks is not like a Radio 2 DJ from the 60s, although it would be a very...
Yes,
funny. These are fake contractions, I think, if I remember right.
Practice ones.
Braxton Hicks are like made up, well, not made up, but you think you've got them, but I might be wrong. I'm sure I'll be corrected, but that's what they are. Well, I think you can see where this tale is going. To cut a long story short, as Spandau said, by the time...
very good.
By the time the triage line believed I was in labour and let us go to hospital, I turned up fully dilated and had that baby shortly afterwards. Unfortunately, it turned into an emergency delivery, which meant that my partner couldn't cut the cord. Something I was gutted about, as I wanted to copy one of your confession stories and start yelling in pain as he cut it, just to scare him. But alas, it wasn't meant to be. Even so, we now have a beautiful, healthy boy called Guy, weighing in at 8 pounds 7 ounces. I'd pop 2 paracetamol and listen to your Popcast, it says here, and that's all I needed to labour my first child on my own. So thank you very much indeed for keeping me going and getting me through. So you gave birth on 2 paracetamol and a podcast.
That's amazing.
That's impressive.
Any chance of a Radio 2 clock that I can put up in Guy's room so I can watch the seconds slowly tick by during the night's feed? So, I mean, I have to say that is pretty astonishing.
Slightly better than taking a photo of yourself subscribing to a podcast, really, isn't it?
Anyway, remember, we'll only be rewarding outstanding contributions to the podcast, so if you want to be in with a chance of receiving something, get your creative hat on or give birth.
Yeah.
Bit of planning needed, or lack of. Email
Very good.
Confessions. I'm warming up to this. Confessions at bbc.co.uk. And in case you hadn't heard, Confessions is staying on the new show with Joe, so keep sending them in. That'd be very nice. Now it's time for the dirty, grubby part that everyone secretly loves, or not so secretly. It's the weekly trawl through the gutter, highlighting the confessions that haven't made the cut due to the compliance rules of the BBC. Heaven knows what we're going to do with Nigel in the house.
Oh, here it comes, everyone.
So, benevolent head teacher, I know you felt you couldn't show any signs of weakness to your staff, so your tummy trouble emergency presented you with a problem when you had to dash off to the staff toilets. But the fact you ended up going into a clearly out-of-order toilet, it had a sign on it, and then left the scene of the crime is not on, especially as there was a full-blown investigation the next day by the facilities manager, and you then shamefully feigned ignorance, saying whoever did that should be sacked.
Yes.
And it was you, head teacher.
Why? I can't see why that didn't get on. I mean, come on.
Probably because it involved...
Yes.
A bit of that. We knew fairly on reading the story from Mr. Blotchy that it wouldn't make the cut. Mentions of accidental trouser droppings, startled pensioners, and worst of all, the use of the phrase Mr. Happy and the Twins. which is obviously
There we go.
no way to talk about anyone's fruit bowl. So,
No.
Mr. Blotchy. Well, there you go. That,
Only made that worse.
and this
Forgiven him anyway.
might be the worst confession ever from Karina. She wrote in with a very funny story about deceiving a radio station by being both contestants on a phone-in quiz. The confession requires several accents, which I was prepared to do, but Karina admits at the very end that she made the whole thing up as a ruse to get me to do my accents. So I feel emotionally upset about that. So just to be clear, none of those are okay. Are they okay, Nigel?
Yeah, I
No,
thought.
I think that was fine.
So the last one, it was you who got hoisted by your own petard.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I-
In order to do your
Because
accents.
people love my
They
accents.
do love
so
the
much.
accents.
Well done, Karina.
Hot
Crafty
diddle-dang
Karina.
Yeah. I mean, either because the accents are really good or maybe there's another reason
Oi, man.
why they love the accents.
Shut your face.
Shut it!
Anyway, confessions@bbc.co.uk. Enough peripheral nonsense. Back to this week's tales with Prankish Paula's tale, Scareway to Devon.
Yes, yes,
agree.
it was. Yes, it was Scareway to Devon.
It's good.
It is good, Nige. You're right. It's a good one.
The Confessions Podcast.
Father Simon and the Humorous Collective. Well, I think you'll be the judge of that.
Correct.
Like many of your confessions, ours goes back 20 years or more. But unlike the majority, we cannot hope that youth and inexperience will help with forgiveness, as we were already sliding out of control into middle age at the time, but without the usual wisdom that comes with it. Humour has always been a big part of our family life. My husband, let's call him Winston, and I, Paula, have done our best to toughen up our kids by telling them all sorts of rubbish, which they happily believed and passed on to their friends and teachers. For years, we've been jumping out of cupboards at them and generally showing them the funny side of life and how it helps in most situations. What's it life like at home? Well, Mum and Dad, they're jumping out of cupboards.
Lively.
Sounds like Cato.
But in the main, they, and now the grandchildren, have developed into well-rounded, interesting members of society and always have a funny story to tell at parties. I think the key words in that sentence were "in the main."
In the main.
The incident in question happened one sunny day in Devon, hence the title of this, in the early 90s, when Winston and I managed to sneak away for a few days, just the two of us. We didn't have to spend any time in amusement arcades, family entertainment shows, or any of the other usual holiday torture that parents have to endure. We took ourselves off on long country walks, ending up in pubs that provided the best beer and wine in the country. It was bliss. This particular day, we found ourselves off the beaten track on moorland, and after a longish walk, I decided to sit and enjoy the wonderful views while Winston strolled off down the hill to explore, calling out that he wouldn't be long, and then we'd find somewhere nice for lunch. Okay?
All good
Yes.
so far.
Yeah,
Fun.
yeah.
How could this possibly go wrong?
After a short time, I could hear his footsteps coming up the rocky path. With my renewed energy, I thought
Oh no.
this would be an ideal opportunity to liven the holiday up.
Oh no.
So creeping behind a conveniently positioned large rhododendron bush, fully bloomed with large deep pink flowers, I waited silently as the steps came closer and closer. With years of practice, I picked the perfect time to leap out, with both arms and legs spread out like a star, my best gurning face and my loudest warrior cry, "Simon, this is your bit."
Hey, here we go. My goodness. Should have a picture of that.
Yes.
You've done your trousers in?
And my back hurts.
Yes.
Everything then seemed to happen in slow motion as a young couple in front of me, dressed in sensible walking gear, complete with map in a plastic container around their neck,
Obviously, yeah.
leapt into the air and a look of horror came over their faces. I scrambled away, muttering apologies and trying to explain that I thought they were my husband between them, which didn't seem to reassure them that much as they scrambled away in the opposite direction, desperate to find safety from the lunatic woman on the hill. Shortly afterwards, Winston appeared, crying with laughter. He'd heard the noise of my best warrior voice and the screams of the terrified couple, and rather than come to help me with my explanation, he decided to hide and let me mumble my way out of my embarrassment. Feeling Winston had some serious brownie points to earn, we made our way back towards the car with a promise of copious amounts of wine and a tasty lunch via the small wood, trying to get into my good books with making me laugh, a ruse which had helped him a lot over the years. He suddenly leapt up on a tree bough and shinned up to the great height at the top of the tree with all the skill of a rather ungainly bear, and proudly started to beat his naked chest like a gorilla whilst roaring his best Tarzan impersonation. Oh, here we go again.
Go on.
Another chance to shine, Simon, says Paula. Well, we've done the yodeling thing, haven't we?
Yeah,
So
very
it's
much
kind of-
related, yeah.
I'm on top of the tree.
Don't forget he's
Beating
shirtless.
your naked chest.
He is, you do need to be naked for this.
Is that right?
There's no need for that. Wow.
I think you popped a rib.
Gifted. Yeah.
Thank you. But gifted, but not in that way.
No.
He knows this is the best way to my heart, and helpless with laughter, I danced a jig. I was indeed his Jane, and it was at this point, of course, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted the same young, sensibly dressed couple who had unfortunately also chosen that route, and without giving me the chance to explain this time, they sprinted away with a now familiar look of horror on their faces. It's the lunatic woman on the hill. Run for your lives. We obviously don't seek forgiveness from the young couple. We already apologised to them once, and by now they'll be middle-aged and hopefully will realise that people still play in the woods at ripe old ages. Is that right?
Yes.
There's a thought.
I'm writing that down.
However, we would
Play in the woods.
Nige.
However, we would like to beg forgiveness to all the people who they will have told not to visit this beautiful area for safety reasons because they've missed a real treat. Now retired, we still hide in cupboards and jump out at each other. But we've stopped using the airing cupboard at the top of the stairs for safety reasons. Winston still usually wins the tree climbing races with the grandchildren. We hope the Playful Collective will see that laughter is the best medicine and see their way to complete absolution for us. I think of all, I like all the pranks and I like all of it. But to conclude by just saying we now don't jump out of cupboards anymore, particularly the airing cupboard at the top of the stairs.
Yes.
Wow. Paula and Winston, they sound like interesting people to spend some time with. I bet they can yodel as well. Bobby, what do you think there?
I want to go on holiday with these guys. I think the couple that lost their sense of humour both times, those are the people that should be avoided at all costs. I think people should be jumping out of cupboards, as long as it's safe to do so, of course, and more. These people really set an example. I think it's fabulous because, let's face it, life is full of all sorts of things, and if you can laugh at it, that's your only way.
Is that
Careful
right?
when you're climbing trees, though. Especially of a certain age, because I watch quite a lot of 24 Hours on A&E, and just be careful.
Is that right?
That's all I'm saying. Yeah, have fun, but with care.
Jumping out
Forgiven.
okay, all right. Nigel, yeah.
Oh, I love climbing trees still. That might surprise you. But I thought it was even worse. I thought it might have involved Paula stripping to her underwear or something, just where my mind raced to.
Goodness me.
Or
For
heaven's sake.
impromptu cliff diving. I thought it could have all gone. So actually, I just thought someone might have slipped, and that was it. So well done, Prankish Paula and Winston. You are the type of grandparents I would love if I was a young. I'd like you anyway. Even
Have
if
you
you're not
ever
my
hidden in a
grandparents.
cupboard and jumped
Oh
out
yeah,
at someone?
I absolutely.
You do that? Bobby, you do it.
I don't do it enough, actually. You've just reminded me. I must do it more often.
Who do you jump out of a cupboard at?
Well, lots of people, but I've lived with. But I must do more fun stuff at home, silly stuff at home.
Why didn't you go to a BBC management cupboard and then in the middle of a meeting,
Yes.
wear your best sparkly frock and jump out and go, "Way!"
What, next week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think?
Yes, every couple should really have a warrior voice that they share together. I should be suggesting that to.
You've got a warrior face.
Yes, I've got a warrior face. Definitely, that's come out a couple of times. I am obviously going to forgive because number one, I always forgive, and number two, because they managed to put your back out in doing your star dance there. So yes,
I did
definitely.
actually genuinely do a star.
You
I
did,
tried to do a star.
yeah, and the beating of the chest. There's a radio first.
So that's a forgiveness.
Yes.
You'll have to rub some arnica on that later.
Why?
On your rib. I think you did a rib. I could hear it go. I'm going. It's okay.
This is the place where penitents seek our pardon for their sins. Simon Mayo's Confessions Podcast.
Father Simon and the rest of you. I like
I
that.
love that. That's
I
my
like that.
favourite.
Not
Is this
forgiven.
Alex a girl or a boy?
Don't think it's going to matter now. It's already unforgiven.
Oh, well, if Matt's going to unforgive, it's
Yeah.
already drastic.
Oh,
Alex
yeah.
is a boy.
Okay.
Boy. The time has come to let go of an indiscretion, albeit one that happened completely and utterly by accident. I am a merchant seafarer and have spent much time travelling the world, but this incident occurs a little closer to home on a train travelling from Plymouth to Southampton in 1998. I was on the way home to Southampton, having been on my ship a few months, when the train pulled into the station. I got up from my seat and walked down towards the door, passing the luggage compartment. I picked up my very trendy green Jaguar sports bag, and off I walked from the train to my lift home and the freedom of the weekend. On arrival home, I caught up with the family, had a cup of tea, and then relaxed. A few hours later, I went upstairs and, seeing my bag in my room, went to open it up. I reached into the bag, and to my surprise, the first thing I pulled out was some lacy underwear. Now, this was definitely not mine, I concluded. I then reached further into the bag and found a pearl necklace and several items of clothing, which I would describe as for an exciting weekend away with your partner.
Hello.
That's the kind of...
Yeah.
And I knew you'd
Walking
say that.
shoes.
Pardon?
Walking shoes. That's an exciting weekend with your partner.
That's it. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you've made it more
Same.
you certificate than it was
hiking.
That's what I'm here for.
Now the confusion started. Where was my bag, and who had got the prize of a far less exciting bag? I then opened my cupboard and was very surprised again to see an identical green Jaguar bag with the same gold writing on it sat in the cupboard, empty. So I now concluded that I'd picked up the wrong bag on the train, but not only that, I'd entered the train in Plymouth without even having my Jaguar bag, as it was at home all along. Alex is a very confused
dear.
person.
Okay.
What to do? Well, I placed the wrong bag in the cupboard next to mine and carried on with my weekend, and thought I would drop it back on Monday at the station when I went back to my ship. After all, there was no name on the bag and nothing else to identify the owner. Well,
Okay. Yeah.
Do these fit?
Yeah, no.
so there was nothing I could do. Honestly. The weekend came and went, and I woke up on the Monday morning, picked up my laptop bag, and went off with my sister for breakfast before being dropped at the station to get back to Plymouth. On the train, I suddenly realised I'd left the bag that wasn't mine at home.
Unbelievable.
He's all over the
Unbelievable.
place. And hadn't therefore left it at lost property for its owner to reclaim. So my story is a simple one, really, but it's not quite over. For another 2 months passed before I came back from my ship. When I was next back in the world, one of my female friends, let's call her Mavis, had a birthday and was attending a party with me. I went to my room to get my snazzy sports bag, obviously still finding two in the cupboard, and in the definitely not mine bag for the exciting weekend with your partner, there was that pearl necklace I mentioned before.
No way.
So what did I do?
No.
Immediately rushed the bag to lost property, as I should have done months ago? Well, not exactly. I took the pearl necklace and gave it to my friend,
What?
Mavis, for her birthday. Happy birthday, I said, dear. She loved it and wore it to the party that night with many a comment on how nicely it complemented her dress. So I come before you on several counts. Count one would probably be a genuine mistake of picking up the wrong bag on the train, except I didn't even get on the train with my bag as it was safely at home in the first place. Count two, I would also ask for forgiveness from whoever's weekend fun I ruined by walking off with that bag, with the exciting accessories. And count three, I suppose giving my friend someone else's necklace. My only defence is that this was all down to a bumbling incompetence rather than a planned train heist. Alex, I don't think... my hunch is this isn't going to go very well for you particularly, but what do I know? Sister Bobby.
Alex, I have been on this
Thing.
position for a few years, for 3, I think.
Yes. And what a glorious 3 years.
Only 2 other times have I been absolutely furious. I mean, really furious.
Yes.
There was the wedding, and there was the
the
there was
wedding.
the,
Yeah.
there
That
was
was
the
cracking.
triptych of
Yes.
relationships that was
That
anyway.
was cracking too.
And this
I
is
like
my
confessions that make Bobby mad.
because they don't. But Alex, I am so mad at you. But basically, it's not a careless indiscretion. Okay, you picked up the wrong bag, and you should have turned around immediately and taken it back. Not said, "Oh, I'll go back on Monday." Especially given the contents might have ruined somebody's weekend. Come on, you can identify with that, surely.
Who are you looking at
But
when you say that?
Secondly,
Are you looking at producer
those
Phil?
pills
Oh,
could have
right.
been something. They could have been like more than what they were. What I'm saying is they could have been very valuable. 2, they could have been in a family heirloom. It's one of those things where actually, no, Alex, no.
I know,
A
Kat.
big No forgiven. Forever.
Oh, okay, no forgiveness forever.
Wow, forever. It's going to be a bit odd when he presents Mavis with this gift. If it doesn't come in a box, she's going to know, have you just found these? Are these someone else's? Why are you giving me loose pearls? Bit bizarre. But I don't think there's much to forgive as far as, because as far as the weekend's concerned, this person with the only thing that's more fun than a weekend with those things is a weekend without those things. I think we all know where we're going there. So I'm amazed that Alex is allowed out. How is he forgetting everything all the time? Unbelievable. But I'm going to forgive. No, actually, I'm not going to forgive because he called us the rest. So
that's right.
Because I'm an egomaniac,
Dad,
I'm going to say.
What's Matt talking about?
Not forgiven.
I see, Mum.
Simon Mayo's Confessions Podcast.
That was Alex's confession, sports bags and glad rags, which prompted this reaction in the People's Verdict. Simon and the Cherubim and Seraphim, I could have forgiven Alex if he'd handed in the bag, even 2 months late. Giving away the pearls is too far. Consigned to eternal darkness for him. Thanks, Julian. I thought that was quite fun, actually. That's it from this week's batch of confessions. Send in your own shadowy secret, please. confessions@bbc.co.uk. Time for our most recent confession. We excavated from the crypt. This week's has been requested by Kate. Dear Simon, I love the Confessions podcast. I'm usually cooking my children's tea at 5:40, so I don't get to hear them live without interruptions. So I curl up in bed and listen to the podcast when the house is quiet. You recently played one of my favourites, The Older Brother Taken by the Troll. Please will you play my other favourite, The Lift Full of Polystyrene Balls. I laughed throughout this one. It was hilarious. Here is My Art Will Go On.
The Confessions Podcast.
Yes, gather round. Tonight's sent in from someone who we're calling Colin.
Hey.
Nothing's happened.
That's hilarious, apparently.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not really
You're
his name. I've worked it out now.
pleased.
He's not really called Colin. Carry on.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I feel the need to confess to an incident dating back to the late 80s, Father Simon. I was studying photography at college in a major city north of the border and in the final year of my course. The number of students had dwindled, and this allowed us access to the studio facilities based in an old gymnasium situated on the roof of a 14-storey building. You can draw a little map if you want for this. Well, Father Simon, one day we noticed workmen had entered our exclusive habitat. And on further investigation, we discovered they were actually there to undertake insulation services. This involved the use of small polystyrene balls, millions of them. In fact, the bags that they'd been brought up in the service lifts were huge, and we're talking 6 foot by 4 foot bags of polystyrene balls. We came up with an idea for what we believe is performance art.
Yeah.
Instantly
Yeah.
interested in what's going to happen here. And so the plan was hatched. Being based in the roof, we had obviously done a little bit of exploring, and as such had found that the room above the main lifts that served the aforementioned 14 floors, this included the classic access via the roof hatch to the lifts. And having been there for 3 years, we'd worked out how to get the lifts to bypass all the floors and go straight to the ground. Very handy at lunch or at the end of the day, when it would save a good 10 minutes, allowing us to get to the bar quicker. So as Matt has probably guessed, not sure why Matt would have guessed as opposed to anyone else, one lunchtime, the centre lift of 3 was stopped by us using our special controls and filled via the roof hatch with all the polystyrene balls that we could find. Bag after bag after bag after bag after bag. For the curious out there, that we used a long pole and a bit of gaffer tape, which allowed us to use the stop-go switch to be activated when we were ready to send the lift down. But we would only send the lift down when it was full to the brim of polystyrene balls. Timing with these things is everything. So 12:55 seemed to be about right, when dozens of students would be in the main foyer, all waiting for the lifts to take them back to class. And so the lift was sent. The scene that followed was difficult to describe, but the people in the foyer, who were pushing and shuffling forward as the lights of the lift counted down to ground level, were, to say the least, surprised when the lift door opened and the mayhem commenced. The first couple of rows of people were instantly vanished, completely in a sea of white balls, with the ones behind ending up waist deep. Others obviously had the survival gene and ran screaming from the lift, not knowing what they were being attacked by. As you can imagine, the balls were everywhere, millions and millions of the little blighters, instantly finding their way into all corners of the ground floor, and indeed out of the main doors. It doesn't take much of a breeze to allow these little fellas to travel at great speed and great distance, and so the carnage spread down the street to the main square, the train station and beyond. Plus, due to static electricity, these balls stick to your hair, your skin and your clothes, with hilarious consequences, as you can imagine. As mentioned before, being photography students, because this was performing art, we had access to video cameras, these being positioned in the foyer, allowing us various and repeated views of the carnage that followed. This almost led to our downfall, with the list of culprits being small. A few of us were summoned to the college principal's office. However, unity is a wonderful thing, and total denial from us all led to a clean getaway from a certain punishment. Upon exit of the Big Cheese's office, we were then summoned to another office, this time the head of the department, who pointed out that he had checked the store logs and knew who had booked out all the video cameras. It seemed the universal denial was not going to work this time, and we prepared for the worst. But denial wasn't going to work. It transpired that he had been at the back of the queue waiting for the lift and was now fighting back tears of laughter and demanded his own copy of the video. He was kind of on our side. So as far as forgiveness is concerned, I'm not really sure I want any, really, as it was and still is one of the funniest things I have ever seen. But I do feel that the unexpected trauma inflicted on the unfortunate souls who were too keen to return to class and were standing at the front of the queue might not have appreciated our performance art. But if any forgiveness is forthcoming, I would like it to be from the street cleaners of this fine city, who undoubtedly had a nightmare trying to clean up after us. We did not at any point imagine the mass escape of thousands of polystyrene balls that took place. It was in fact weeks before the last of them were no longer being spotted in the streets. It's the kind of thing that a number of people will understand based on just on the maybe they got a beanbag at home, a poof. Do we still call them a poof? Which you put your feet on? Anyway, and the zip comes undone and you've lost a few hundred and you'll never ever find them ever again. Anyway, imagine that, but it's a whole lift's worth. Colin, I'm not sure about performance art at the best of times, but anyway, this sounds quite fun. What do you think, Sister Rebecca?
It does sound like a lot of fun. Can you imagine if you knew that it was happening and you just jumped into the lift like in one of those soft play things and bounced around with all those balls? Really good fun. But for the people, the unsuspecting people, I do feel a bit sorry for them because they were obviously terrified, and especially for the street cleaners. I know he does feel guilty about that, but that must have been a nightmare. However, I think it was a great jape and it was a great idea, so I'm going to forgive.
Forgiveness for the first. Okay, what do we think about that, Novice?
Father Simon, I think it was a fantastic wheeze, and it was a cool thing to do. I think, and also as well, I think tell you who was cool was the head of department, photography department. I thought he was fantastic. The way
Just
he dealt
wanted
with
his
it,
own
or
video.
she dealt with it.
Yes.
Or, I think it was he. But no, brilliant. I'm still amazed how many of them could have escaped into the street. But as you say, I suppose
Only
it
needs
was
a slight breeze and they're
static
gone.
electricity. They are. I mean, they are little lightweight devils. But great, Colin. Well done to you. I know it's not your real name, but I definitely forgive you. Very funny.
Just to fool everybody, it might actually be a real Colin. You never know.
Who knows?
double bluff.
What do you think?
So obviously, I mean, if this video clip had been available, it would definitely have gone viral. But his question about whether it's performance art, yes, it is performance art, because let's face it, anything is performance art. If you put an egg in a blender and press on, that apparently is performance art. Call it futility of hope, and there you go. It's performance art. Give me an award.
There was a guy who was nominated for the Turner Prize a few years ago who poured a bottle of water down a mountain and filmed it.
There you go.
That was performance
and
art.
that is performance art. So for that, I am going to forgive.
Simon Mayo's Confessions podcast.
That was your confession from the crypt this week, featuring Rebecca.
Yes.
In there.
Nige was in there.
Nige is in there.
Yeah,
He's always
thank you for having me.
in there. And if you have a request for a vintage confession, send us over the details. Everything you can remember, please, confessions@bbc.co.uk. We'll do our best to dig them out of the crypt. Sister Bobby, you forgave 2 confessions this week, which is
Very forgiving.
It is amazing, really. Your yearly tally is now 30 forgives and 28 not forgives.
Oh, hold on a second. That's going in the wrong direction, isn't it?
You need to look out.
Yeah, that's Matt's influence. Too much Matt.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Matt, you broke your forgiving spell this week as you didn't forgive Alex, but it wasn't anything to do with the actual confession. It was because he called you the rest of you. It was Dear Simon and the rest of you.
Yeah.
Which takes you to 54 forgives.
Yes.
And 6 not forgives.
6 not forgives. Everyone's
Wow.
forgiven, apart from those 6.
I mean, if you're one of those 6...
Yeah.
I
I mean,
feel
what
really
have you
bad.
done?
Yeah, well, you'll probably go to hell. I'm just thinking.
That's right. A lot of theology
Overstating
in
it?
this one. Yeah.
Anyway, if you have something to get off your chest, send your own confession, please, to confessions@bbc.co.uk. If you made it to the end of the last podcast, I ask you to tweet, "I'll give him hope." Ian, David,
that's
Elaine,
very good.
Harry and Jen and all the others did so. There'll be another one of our special Confessions from the Crypt, a compilation, some of the best of the old stuff coming out for you next week. In the meantime, Nigel, thank you.
Thank you very much. This is more surreal than I ever imagined. It's brilliant. A surreal podcaster. I like it.
Bobby, thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Oh, and happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yes.
The Confessions Podcast. Go in peace.